Hi, I am Mike Delahan, a member of Journey's management team, and today I am here to share a message called Cheerful Giving. Have you ever heard the phrase God works in mysterious ways or something similar? Interestingly, this phrase is not directly attributable to the Bible. Some scholars point to a poem from the 1700s when the phrase God moves in mysterious ways was first used. But others try to tie the phrase to the Bible through Romans chapter 11, verse 33, which says, "Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and the knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and his ways past tracing out." And then from the Guidepost organization, there is this story called The Repeat Hero. Christopher Menacke and his wife were driving near Chagrin Falls, Ohio, on their way home from a football game. They passed a van that was towing a boat, and they noticed that the driver was pulling over with a flat tire. Well, Christopher dropped his wife at home, and he returned to the road to see if he could be of any assistance. He got out of his car, and he went over to talk to the driver of the van. The driver told Christopher that he and his son were coming back from a fishing trip. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a speeding car flew towards them that was clearly out of control. It smashed into Christopher's car, and had his car not been there, it would have rammed into the van and killed the driver and his son. The driver of the out-of-control car was allegedly drunk. But that's not all there is to the story. ABC's Good Morning America reports that was a strange situation that became even stranger. Gerald Gronowski, who was the owner of the van, was returning from a lake fishing trip, and he asked Menacke what kind of work he did. When Menacke replied that he is a nurse practitioner at Case Western's School of Nursing, Gronowski recounted an incident that had taken place 8 years earlier. He tells me about this story where he was fishing on that same lake where he was with his son, Menacke said, and his son at that time was on the dock where you launch the boats, and I heard him say, "Is anybody here a doctor?" I was kayaking with my son on the lake, and his son says, "My dad's hurt really bad." I said to him, "Let me take a look at him." He had 3 fishing hooks deep in the palm of his hand, deep in the tissue of his hand. Well, fortunately, I had a medical kit to remove the hook out of his hand without causing any more extensive damage. He's telling me this story, and I go, "Yeah, I know this story well." And he looks at me and he says, "You do?" I say, "Yeah, it was me." 8 years later, these 2 men were reunited in a different incident. Why? That is definitely a mystery. Those types of stories give me the chills. From the Bible, Psalm 147, verse 5 states that God's understanding is beyond our measure, which means that we cannot possibly comprehend all the ways that he works throughout our lives. According to the organization Compelling Truth, an excellent example of God's mysterious ways is demonstrated in the life of Joseph. Joseph suffered isolation and pain when his brothers sold him into slavery. And after Joseph endured extreme hardship, he actually ended up in the palace when he told his brothers, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." That's in Genesis chapter 50. Joseph had the wisdom and trust that everything he went through was because of God's good plan for his life. Joseph's brothers were evil to him, but Joseph acknowledged that God desires to save his people from the evil in this world. And that's from Genesis chapter 15. Joseph brought the Hebrew people out of Canaan, where they experienced famine, and he brought them into Egypt. Joseph was able to save his people because as governor of the land, he bought and sold the food, according to Genesis chapter 42. Joseph was in Egypt because his brothers sold him into slavery. The people who sold their own brother into slavery then had to rely on him for nourishment. Although this part of Joseph's story is remarkable, it is only a sliver of how God used Joseph's suffering and obedience to shape history. There would be no story of Moses or an exodus from Egypt 400 years later if Joseph had not been the governor of Egypt and led his people from Canaan. Would Joseph have still been able to save his family and be a catalyst for huge events in Hebrew history if he was not first a slave? Would Joseph have had the influence in Egypt that he did have had he not first been falsely accused and jailed as told in Genesis chapter 39? We can't say for sure, but we do know that Joseph's life displays God's glory and the surprising way that he turns our stories upside down for the sake of his glory. Through Joseph's story, we see that the Lord was with him, and he opened the doors for Joseph to save his people. Today, I will share with you a mysterious way that God worked in my life, and over 2 years later, how it relates to my message, Cheerful Giving. In June of 2018, I attended the annual meeting of the Society of Pension Actuaries and Record Keepers in National Harbor, Maryland. That sounds like an exciting group, doesn't it? Well, at breakfast on the first day, I sat at a table with one other person and struck up a conversation. You know, it was one of these typical conference conversations. What do you do? Well, how long have you worked there? And where are you from? Among other things, my breakfast partner Diana said, "Hey, a couple of my colleagues will be here later. On a break, you should come by our booth and meet them." So during the break, I did get to meet Diana's colleagues, Francis and Dan. I learned that they all worked for an international communications company, AHC, and the company is based in England, and what they do is they try to make retirement plan investing easier to understand for workers in the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. Well, it turns out that I had met their colleague Dan at a different conference when he was in a different role with another company. Now, as an aside, my first interaction with Dan was rather memorable. I met him and another industry colleague at an event that we co-sponsored at the Virginia Tech Research Center in Arlington, Virginia, up near Washington, D.C. The memorable part is that Dan and his colleagues showed up at the Virginia Tech main campus in Blacksburg late the night before, realized they were more than 4 hours off course, and drove through most of the night in order to be in Arlington for our 8:30 a.m. start time. Well, to once again quote a favorite phrase of my daughter's, that's an oof. Well, back to the Spark Conference. After talking to Diana, Dan, and Francis about the cool work that they were doing and tossing around ideas of companies that could benefit from their work, they graciously invited me to a cocktail party that they were hosting at the W Hotel in Washington, D.C. We had a great time. A little after midnight, we found ourselves taking pictures in front of the White House, and after 1 a.m., we were eating cheeseburgers at the Old Ebbitt Grill. And if you know anything about my early to bed habits, you know that this late night activity was very unusual. I was drawn to the work my new friends from AHC were doing to make retirement plan communications more effective, and today I can see how God was working in this new relationship in a mysterious way. I stayed in touch with Diana, Dan, and Francis, mainly by forwarding them industry articles I thought would be helpful and suggesting companies that might need their services. Well, look forward 3 months later to September of 2018, and imagine my surprise when I received an email invitation to a large European retirement plan conference and study group with the folks from AHC. The hospitality the week of the study tour was spectacular. In 5 days, we attended events in London, Wakefield, and Liverpool, England. I was able to meet a member of the House of Lords, which is the upper level of England's Parliament. I also spent time with AHC's founder, Tony Hodges. You see, AHC stands for Anthony Hodges Consulting. Ironically, the first day of the study tour in England was also the first day of AHC's new CEO, Roger Haddam. In another mysterious twist from God, as we all hear about how secular Europe has become and how no one there cares about the local church, Tony and Roger are two of the strongest men of God you would ever want to meet. They have hearts to help God's church not only survive in England, but to thrive. Who knew? I certainly had no clue. During a later business trip to the United States in 2019, Tony, Roger, Diana, and Dan made an effort to arrange their schedules to meet up with me in Boston for dinner. We did discuss business, but at this point, it was a gathering of friends reconnecting. This past spring, Roger, of course, AHC's CEO, reached out to me via a Zoom call, and he told me about some charity work he is involved in England. Roger is the volunteer chairman of the trustees for Christians Against Poverty, which is known as CAP for short. Roger said he felt led to introduce me to the founder of CAP, John Kirkby. I had a Zoom call with John and heard his amazing story of being a successful businessman from the finance industry whose personal finances were such a mess because he was head over heels in personal debt. From the depths of despair, after receiving help from a local church, John gave up his lucrative finance job and he founded Christians Against Poverty in 1996. Having been through a time in my life where my debts and annual income were about equal, I can relate to John's story. I worked my way out of my difficult situation. But John took it to the next level by deciding to help others turn their debt from overwhelming to manageable. Today, CAP is an international credit counseling charity focused on helping thousands of people to become debt-free across the world. And 2 years ago, CAP came to the United States. Is CAP needed in the U.S.? Well, the Financial Health Network reports 81% of Americans are experiencing financial stress. Why? A Nerd Wallet survey reports that average U.S. credit card debt is $15,094. And U.S. average auto loan car debt is $27,630. Median household income in the U.S., which means that half people make more and half of the people make less than that, is about $68,000 per household. So simple math would indicate that the average consumer debt in America is well over 1/2 of the median income. You know what? I find these stats very encouraging. How is that possible? Friends, if you feel financially stressed, you are not alone. You have plenty of company. You also have plenty of compassion surrounding you. Did you know that the Bible references money and how to handle it around 2,500 times? A verse like Proverbs chapter 2, verse 11 is meant to encourage us. It says, "Wise planning will watch over you. Understanding will keep you safe." And a verse like Philippians chapter 4, verse 2 is meant to help us pursue godly contentment. Here, Paul writes, "I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content, and in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want." So what does Jesus want for us when it comes to our life? Our financial life. Indeed, all of our life. John chapter 10, verse 10 tells us Jesus said, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." To help you plan wisely, learn what it is like to be content, and to live life to its fullest, Journey is excited to announce we have partnered with CAP America to offer their CAP Money course. We will be offering an online 3-session course in January on the 20th and 27th and on February 3rd. Each session lasts approximately 90 minutes. And the course follows 3 steps that have helped thousands of people gain control of their debt. Number 1, build and live on a budget. The online resources provided by CAP make the process easier than a pencil and paper budget, though that is certainly available if that's what you prefer. Number 2, deploy the Christians Against Poverty money system, which is a 3-account system to make managing cash flow and bill payment organized and simplified. And then number 3, how to live each week using a pay-as-you-go cash strategy to provide visibility to your expense management? Well, what if you do not have any debt or very little debt? First of all, congratulations. But second, you can still benefit from the CAP Money class by learning more about its strategies and, most importantly, being on the lookout for churched and unchurched people who might benefit from a future class offering. One CAP Money attendee wrote, "Before the CAP Money course, we never knew where we were and we felt overwhelmed about how to budget. Now, our finances are clear and we're confident managing them." That sounds like someone on the road to contentment. The following mystery still intrigues me. Why did I go to that conference in Washington, D.C.? Why did I happen to sit at Diana's table when there were well over a dozen other tables to choose from? Why were the folks from AHC so nice to invite me to their study tour, despite the fact that they barely knew me? Why was my company so gracious to agree to spend thousands of dollars to send me to a European retirement conference? Why was it Roger's first day as CEO at the conference and study group? Why did Roger seek me out to tell me the CAP story? Why did I get to talk to the founder of CAP for well over an hour via Zoom technology? Why did I hit it off with CAP America Executive Director Simon? Why is Journey Church willing to partner with CAP America to start a CAP Money Education Center right here in Roanoke? Is it because the Lord works in mysterious ways? Maybe. And is it because God knows Roanoke needs a CAP Money Education Center and he knows you needed to hear the CAP story? I think so. By planning wisely, living life to the fullest, and moving closer to contentment, it is very likely you will become a powerful example of a cheerful giver. What we want for you is for you to allow us to help you move toward this type of bountiful life. The question is, will you join us in this effort? Let me end with a prayer, please. Lord, thank you for this time together. Thank you for this incredible global organization, Christians Against Poverty. Thank you for how the CAP organization has already changed so many lives. Thank you for their decision to come to help people in the United States the last couple of years. Thank you for the chance that we have to partner with them. God, we know that what you want for each of us is to be content and to live life to its fullest, to be able to cheerfully give of our time and of our financial resources. We thank you so much for the chance to learn from the mystery of life, the mystery of what's in the Bible, the mystery of what you have in store for each of us. Lord, we thank you for the CAP Money classes that are coming up for the first series that we'll be doing in January and early February. We thank you for those that decide to attend. We thank you for those that maybe send other folks to find out more about the program. And we just thank you for this time to be together online today in this session. We just thank you for these resources that we have to have this online ministry. And we just appreciate you, God. We really do. And thank you. Amen.